Hi, ARMY. Tonight was supposed to be a perfect celebration, but for Jungkook, the sweet scent of vanilla cream from the birthday cake in Taehyung's hands felt like poison stinging his lungs. He stood frozen in the shadow of the hallway, watching a scene that made his chest tighten, Taehyung laughing brightly, his eyes forming beautiful crescent moons, while his fingers gently touched Suga's shoulder as he held out the lit candles. All this time, Jungkook believed he was the center of Taehyung's gravity, the exclusive owner of the attention of V that was never meant to be shared. But seeing the sincere sparkle of admiration in Taehyung's eyes as he looked at Suga made Jungkook feel his position starting to shake. The loud birthday song from the staff sounded like static buzzing in his ears, drowning out the rapid beating of his heart fueled by suppressed anger. Taehyung then cut a small piece of cake and fed it directly to Suga, a gesture of intimacy he usually reserved only for the maknae. Suga, usually cold and reserved, accepted the bite with a rare faint smile, a soulmate moment perfectly captured by another member's phone camera. In the corner of the room, Jungkook's fists tightened until his knuckles turned white. The jealousy wasn't just envy, it was fear of losing something precious. Jungkook remembered how he had just tried to invite Taehyung to dinner earlier, only to be turned down with the excuse of urgent business. It turned out that urgent business was preparing a luxurious surprise for the group's genius producer. The feeling of being ignored burned Jungkook's ego, turning his affection into embers ready to explode at any moment. Suddenly, Taehyung's eyes met Jungkook's from the darkness. The smile on Taehyung's face didn't fade, instead, he waved cheerfully, as if unaware of the storm raging inside the younger man. That lack of awareness hurt Jungkook even more, how easily Taehyung could share his affection with others as if what they had wasn't something special. Without saying a word, Jungkook turned and quickly walked toward the empty dressing room, slamming the door hard enough for the sound to echo down the corridor. He didn't need cake, he didn't need a celebration. He just wanted Taehyung to realize that his presence couldn't be replaced by anyone, not even by Suga on his birthday. In the silence of the dressing room, Jungkook stared at his reflection in the mirror, trying to steady his uneven breathing. But the soft knock on the door and Taehyung's deep voice calling his name from outside shattered his defenses. Tonight was no longer about Suga's birthday, it was about the confrontation they had long avoided behind their smiles in front of the cameras. The dressing room door creaked open slowly, slicing through the suffocating silence. Taehyung stepped inside, still carrying the sweet scent of cake, though the cheerful expression he once wore had faded into something harder to read. He didn't speak immediately, he simply stood there, letting his shadow fall over Jungkook, who was still facing away from the door. "Kook, why did you leave like that?" Taehyung's voice sounded lower than usual, echoing softly against the cold walls. Jungkook didn't turn around. He kept staring at his own reflection, his eyes now red. To him, the question felt insulting, as if Taehyung truly couldn't see the fire he had just ignited. Without warning, Jungkook spun around and cornered Taehyung against the door. "Why?" Jungkook hissed, his voice trembling between anger and pain. "You canceled our plans just to prepare those ridiculous candles? You made me feel like a stranger watching from a distance, Tae." Taehyung froze, his back pressed firmly against the wooden door. He could feel the heat of Jungkook's hurried breathing. But instead of avoiding his gaze, he looked straight into the maknae's eyes. "It's TAEHYUNG's birthday, Jungkook. Only once a year. Why do you have to make everything about yourself?" The word struck Jungkook like a slap. The burning pride inside him suddenly stung. "Because I thought I was your priority," Jungkook shouted, his voice breaking. "But seeing you feed him cake, seeing the way you looked at him. I realized your attention can be given to anyone. I'm not special, am I? The room fell silent. The tears Jungkook had been holding back finally slipped down, betraying his strong facade. Seeing that, Taehyung's expression softened instantly. His anger dissolved, replaced by deep guilt. Slowly, he raised his hand and wiped Jungkook's tears with his thumb, a familiar touch that now felt painfully tender. You're foolish for thinking that, Taehyung whispered, pulling Jungkook into a tight embrace until their heartbeats seemed to merge. I gave that cake to Suga because he's our Hyung. But I give the rest of my time to you, because you're my world. Never doubt that again. Jungkook went quiet in the embrace, his anger slowly fading in the warmth he had secretly longed for, though traces of jealousy still left small scars in his heart. Jungkook buried his face in the curve of Taehyung's neck, breathing in the familiar scent that always calmed him, a mix of masculine perfume and a faint sweetness from outside. The tension that had been stretched like a breaking string slowly loosened. He didn't return the hug immediately, letting his stubborn pride struggle a little longer, but Taehyung's warmth was the anchor he needed in the storm of his own jealousy. I'm sorry, Taehyung whispered near Jungkook's ear, his fingers gently combing through the Mogne's black hair. I was too focused on making the surprise perfect that I forgot someone was waiting for me with much bigger expectations. I never meant to make you feel abandoned, Kook. Truly. Finally, Jungkook wrapped his arms around Taehyung's waist, tightening the hug as if afraid that loosening it even slightly would allow reality to pull them apart again. Don't do that again, Jungkook murmured softly, his voice muffled against Taehyung's shoulder. Don't look at other people with the same sparkle you use when you look at me. It drives me crazy. Taehyung chuckled quietly, the vibration of his laugh echoing against Jungkook's chest. He pulled back just enough to cup Jungkook's face in both hands, forcing those round, tear-filled eyes to meet his. That sparkle is different, Jungkook. For them, it's respect and brotherhood. But for you, Taehyung paused, placing a gentle kiss on Jungkook's forehead, it's home. The dressing room that once felt tense now turned into a private space filled with intimacy. The harsh neon lights seemed softer, and the distant noise of the small party outside faded away. Jungkook felt foolish for doubting his place in Taehyung's heart, yet relieved that the storm had finally broken, leaving behind a quiet rainbow. Taehyung then reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small box he had originally planned to give during the dinner that never happened. I actually prepared this for you after Hyung's celebration. I wanted us to wear it together. Inside were two simple silver bracelets with delicate initials engraved, silent symbols of a bond stronger than any piece of cake. Jungkook smiled softly, the warmth in his chest now replacing the heaviness he once felt. He let Taehyung fasten the bracelet around his wrist, sealing an unspoken promise that even if the world saw them only as co-workers or friends, behind closed doors they were everything to each other. That night, the sweetness in the air was no longer about Suga's birthday cake, but about the peace that had returned between the two of them. This story is entirely a work of fiction created for entertainment and fan imagination. The plot, dialogue, and situations do not reflect real events or the personal lives of BTS members. All characters mentioned are used only as inspiration within this fanfiction. Thank you for staying with this story until the end. If you enjoy emotional stories like this, don't forget to keep supporting the Gallery Jungkook channel, a place where every story, moment, and imagination about Jungkook continues to live and be felt together. See you in the next story.